Assalamu alaikum and good day. I am Jehan Bashir, and at this juncture I am going to discuss to you about the 7th period in the English literature known as the Edwardian period. So basically this period is the period covering the reign of King Edward VII on 1901 to 1910. So this period is usually considered to have extended up to the start of the First World War in 1914. Basically, the Edwardian period is the era between the end of the Victorian era and the start of the First World War. So it is often seen as a golden age when the world paused between the busy industrialization of the Victorians and the chaos of the global war. Although the Edwardian period was short, it was a time of great change from social reforms to fashion trends and technological advances. So here are the characteristics of the Edwardian period. Firstly, in the aspects of politics, this period was a time of great political changes. The Conservatives had been the dominant political party from the 1890s, but in 1906, the Liberals returned to power and made significant reforms such as regulation of working hours, national insurance, and the beginnings of the welfare state, among others. Secondly, in the aspect of economy, this era stood out as a time of peace and prosperity. There was no severe depression and prosperity was widespread. In fact, Britons got great finance and had a strong base in manufacturing and mining. With regards to the rising status of women, the position of women in society changed dramatically during this time, as did the relationships between the parents and the children. So the Edwardian era saw the rise of the suffragette movement with the creation of the National Union of Women's Suffrage Societies in 1897 and the Women's Social and Political Union in 1903. Next, in the aspect of the technological advancement, there were significant technological advancements, especially in the mass communication, right? For example, the first wireless signal across the Atlantic, which was sent in 1901, as well as in the leisure and entertainment, particularly with the development of the cinema. One of the key technological developments of the period was the introduction of Kodak's Brownie camera in 1900, which enabled everybody to make their own record of their surroundings. Now, where the Victorian era was represented by the railway and steam power, the Edwardian era was the age of bicycle and the internal combustion engine, marked as well by the first successful flight of the Wright brothers in 1903. And lastly, in the aspect of fashion, fashions also changed from the corsets, complexity, and dark colors of the Victorian period to the fresher colors and simpler styles, although women continued to wear the corsets until 1913. Now moving on, we have here the Edwardian literature. So the end of the Victorian era marked a new beginning for literature in the land, with fresher ideas and greater need leading the way. The Edwardian literature would go on to be more intense, social, and political for ages to come. Famous writers include Herbert George Wells, George Bernard Shaw, E.M. Forster, J.M. Barrie, Thomas Hardy, and many more. Now, apart from these famous writers, this was a period when a great number of novels and short stories were being published, and a significant distinction between highbrow literature and the popular fiction emerged. Now, when we consider a particular literature to be highbrow, this means that it is intellectual, academic, and is often difficult to understand. In the aspect of the novels, the Edwardian novelists were similarly eager to explore the shortcomings of the English social life. Now, in the aspects of poetry, the Edwardian poets wrote romantic poetry about nature and the pleasures of the rural living. And lastly, the Edwardian era gave birth to a number of literary and critic movements such as Imagism, Futurism, Realism, and Naturalism. Now we are down to the literary works during the Edwardian period. So we have here one of the famous writers in this era named Sir James Matthew Barrie. He was a Scottish novelist and playwright, best remembered as the creator of the Peter Pan. Now, he was born and educated in Scotland and then moved to London, where he wrote a number of successful novels and plays. So again, he was the writer of the famous Peter Pan, or also known as The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. So, firstly, we have here the characters who played the role in the Peter Pan. So we have Peter Pan, of course, the main character in this novel who never wants to grow up and has the ability to fly wherever and whenever he wants to. So usually he is residing on the imagined island of Neverland together with pirates, Indians, and mermaids. Secondly, we have Wendy, who is also the main character alongside with Peter Pan. As an opposite to Peter Pan, she is nice, noble, and helpful to everyone facing the trouble. Thirdly, we have Captain Hook, who is at first impression very mean and cruel man whose main occupations are theft and murders. And lastly, we have Mrs. Darling, a kind and caring woman who loves her children more than anything else in the world. We also have here the themes surfaced or reflected in the novel. We have first the eternal youth. So the main theme of the story is the conflict between wanting to remain a child but knowing that one has to become an adult. Now Peter Pan is the living and breathing manifestation of the desire to remain a child forever without responsibility or cares. Secondly, we have the theme regarding motherhood. So both Mrs. Darling and Wendy are portrayed as very maternal, and it is suggested that their role in life should be to nurture children. Thirdly, we have good triumphing over evil. So a central and rather simple theme in the play is that of the triumph of good over evil. Captain Hook is a bona fide baddie, and his deeds are evil and intended to cause harm. Peter is the adventurous boy who will never grow up, represents good. However, Captain Hook represents evil. And lastly, we have the family. Now, let me share to you a brief summary of the story of the Peter Pan. So, the Darlings are living together with their 3 children at the home number 14. Now, they have a girl named Wendy and 2 sons, John and Michael. So, they were living in perfect harmony until one day, a boy with an interesting name appeared. It was Peter Pan. So Peter Pan really was a quiet and unusual boy who was visiting the nursery every night playing the flute. Mrs. Darling didn't believe the children, considering the story as a product of Wendy's imagination, until one night she saw Peter Pan and Nana, their dog, jumped and caught his shadow. Peter Pan ran away through the window, and the upset mother put the shadow away in one of the children's room drawers. Now one evening, the Darlings had to go out, so Mom closed the windows tight. After the children fell asleep, Fairy Tinker Bell entered the room, followed by Peter Pan, who immediately started a search for his missing shadow. Now he found the shadow in the drawer, but at that very moment, Wendy woke up. Seeing Peter Pan didn't frighten her at all, so she stitched his shadow back onto him. She found out all about Peter's escape from his parents and his life as a leader of the Lost Boys in Neverland. Now when John and Michael woke up, Peter Pan taught them how to fly, so they made a deal to visit the Neverland together. Now, when Wendy and her brothers arrived in the Neverland, they were completely amazed by its beauty. They noticed a pirate ship owned by Captain Hook. As they came closer to the ship, the pirates started a cannon fire. Tinker Bell spotted the Lost Boys and told them not to shoot at Wendy. However, Toothless shot Wendy directly in her stomach, so she fell. Peter arrived so mad that he wanted to kill the Toothless, but luckily for him, Wendy survived. Now the Lost Boys took good care of Wendy, making her feel comfortable by building her a house. Now she became like a mother to them, taking care of their hygiene, health, and nutrition. Now Tinker Bell was becoming more and more jealous, waiting for the opportunity to hurt Wendy. The pirates somehow managed to sneak their way to Wendy's house and attack and captured some of the lost boys and Wendy as well and took them to the pirate ship. However, Wendy acted brave, refusing their proposals to step on their side as their lady. Peter Pan remained free, but Captain Hook put some poison in his glass while he was sleeping. When he tried to drink the poison, Fairy Tinkerbell arrived, saving him at the last moment. Now Peter Pan arrived to save Wendy, her brothers, and the rest of the lost boys. So the final battle between Peter Pan and Captain Hook took place, appearing unresolved until Peter pushed Captain Hook from the boat, so he ended in the jaws of the crocodile. Suddenly, a moment came for Wendy and her brothers to return back to their parents who were waiting for them. Seeing them asleep, Mother Darling first thought that she is dreaming, but at their own fortune, everything was actually real. Now, soon after that, the six of the lost boys appeared, and the Darling family decided to adopt all of them. Despite everything, Peter Pan wanted to stay a boy and never to grow up. So he returned with Tinkerbell back to the Neverland. So that is all for the discussion. Thank you for listening.